Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another insightful episode of Let's Align podcast. I hope you have had a wonderful week so far. If we haven't met yet, my name is Ruhi, and I use this podcast as my space to talk about things that truly matter. I believe in our busy lives, balancing work, family, and all the social pressures, there is this quiet pressure we all feel to always be okay, to keep smiling even when things are tough, and often hide those struggles inside. And today's episode is all about that pressure, the pressure of feeling okay. It's something I believe many of us relate to, especially in the current times where mental and emotional challenges don't always get the space to be talked about openly. And I'm thrilled to welcome my guest for today, Jamie. He is a passionate advocate for mental well being and the author of insightful works on resilience and self care. His thoughtful approach and personal insights makes him a powerful voice in helping us understand the importance of embracing our true feelings without any shame or judgment. Jamie, thank you so much for joining me, and I'm so glad to have you on my show.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
All right. So, firstly, thanks for being here. To get started, can you share a little about your own journey? Like, what made you want to speak about the pressure to feel okay all the time?
Mine comes from my personal journey. So,
Hmm.
experiencing childhood trauma, abuse, and growing up with depression, which eventually led me into the field of psychology and studying things, try to figure myself out in a way. And then it just went from there in terms of wanting to use what I learned and use what I experienced personally to help other people.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey. And I think a lot of people listening will instantly connect with what you just shared because it's often those personal experiences that I believe that open the door for conversations like this. So I really appreciate the honesty. It's such a real tone for the rest of the episode. I can definitely say that. Now, there is this unspoken rule to keep emotions private, like to carry on without letting others see when you're struggling with. If I may ask, from your experience, how does this cultural expectation of, emotional restraint impact anyone's mental health and I would say overall well-being?
Is devastating. We don't even publicly know or understand the consequences of emotional sublimation, of trying to just keep our emotions quiet. It's like having a it's like having a bottle of Coca-Cola and
Mhm.
you shake it up. If you take that cap off, it's going to just spew everywhere. And that's what it's like to have repressed emotions. Myself, for instance, most of the time when I was growing up, I was I was not allowed to even speak about my depression and the way I felt. So that only made things worse. And by the time I was 18, it was so bad that I had a suicide attempt because I had never had anyone to really honestly talk about it. I'd never received any type of medical or therapeutic care. So I had nowhere to go with those feelings of darkness, doubt, shame, everything, you name it. And especially in our society today where we're all, social media happy. And when you see people on social media, myself included, if I make a video to post, I'm generally smiling or trying to be positive. But when the camera goes off, that's not necessarily reality. And so it gives us this false impression that everybody else is doing great and everybody else is happy and got this wonderful life. So if you have any problems, whether it be mental health issues, whether it be trauma, or just normal ups and downs of life, you feel worse because now you're comparing yourself to somebody else. But that comparison is false. It's make believe. And our society generally does not approve of us discussing real emotions.
Well, that's so true. I can totally relate to what you said that many a times we put a happy face on social media and it just gets us into that vicious circle that everyone around us is happy except us. So thank you so much for being so open about it, that how the social media really tricks you. And when you explain it in that way, it really highlights, how carrying on without showing our struggles isn't actually strength. It's almost like putting an armor that slowly weighs us down. Um, Now, when someone is feeling overwhelmed by this constant pressure, to look and appear okay all the time, there are often signs that they might not even be fully aware of themselves. Now, what are some of the subtle warning signs someone might miss?
Fatigue is
Mm-hmm.
probably the easiest one. If you have trouble going to sleep at night, if you sleep but don't get a full 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and it's not good sleep, in other words, you may be restless. You may wake up 2 or 3 times a night. Um, you may sleep 7 or 8 hours, but when you get up, you're still tired. That's not from physical fatigue, that's mental or emotional fatigue. And sleep is the number one indicator of both physical and mental health. And it's also the first, I guess, the first milestone to tackle. If you are having issues, if you can start getting good rest, it helps regulate your nervous system, which will help bring some of that emotional pressure off your brain. Um, Another way is your relationships. And this one can be a little tricky because you have to be honest about your life and your circumstances. So if you are the victim of childhood trauma or abuse, you automatically know you're going to have relationship problems. That's one of the main symptoms that comes from that type of experience. So myself, for example, my trauma started when I was 8 years old and my mother died. I was sitting watching cartoons one Saturday morning, and my grandmother came in the room and said, "I'm sorry, but she's not coming home." And that was devastating. That took away my whole life at that point. And I never got the chance to grieve properly. And then going straight from there into an abusive environment with my father. So from 9 to 18 was just constantly told that I was unwanted, unworthy, unloved. So there is no doubt that even someone that's not in psychology can look at a life like that and understand, okay, yeah, there's going to be some relationship problems because I'm going to have problems connecting to people. I'm going to have problems wondering if people really love me or not. I may have problems either doing too much or not doing enough. And some of that kind of goes to attachment theory. And we can talk about that later if you want, or people can do more reading. But the point being is, if you see a pattern with relationship issues, romantic relationships, family relationships, friends, you have to be honest, say, okay, does that come from trauma? Is, or is there something going on in my life right now? Maybe a mental illness that you're struggling with that is causing this. But that is a number one warning sign that there's an underlying issue. There's a root cause there. It's not just that everybody else is a jerk and that everybody is bad in a relationship and you can't find, Mr. or Mrs. Perfect, or you just for some reason don't get along with all of your family, or, you know, you kind of have to take a step back and be honest about it and say, okay, If this is a pattern, then there's something going on inside that's coming out in these relationships.
Sure, it must have been very challenging for you during during that period, especially when you called out that from age 9 until 18. Uh, and I also understand that it comes from space of having that awareness. Uh, so, for someone who is listening right now, what's the message you want to give if you see certain patterns? How do you think that they can start looking at or start getting to know about the awareness about the patterns that they see?
Yes, become a student of yourself. Every healing and growth is painful at the beginning. Everybody that's started a multi-million dollar empire or corporation, unless they were just handed, unless it was handed to them, unless they inherited it, if they started from scratch, it was painful at first. Everybody that starts to train for a marathon or weightlifting or decathlon or anything, at first, it's painful. There's a lot of sweat, a lot of exercise. It is the same with mental health. It is the same with trauma recovery. And I know we don't like to hear this, but it's going to be painful and it's going to take some time. If you become a student of yourself, you can start viewing your actions, viewing your responses and behaviors. You know, we talk about triggers. That's a very popular word and sometimes overused on things. Like people say, "Oh, I was just triggered by that." But if we're talking about legitimate uh, mental health triggers, like especially anxiety or PTSD, there are certain things that happen or that you notice that all of a sudden your body starts tensing up or you start feeling nervous, uh, starts feeling like you're getting warmer, afraid. Those are triggers. Those are things that you can notice. And if you're a student of yourself, you can start pinpointing those. So those are things that you can do to help at the beginning, just
Hmm.
lower the response to those issues. And it all has to do with regulating your nervous system. So if you can learn these things about yourself, then you can start working on them. And like I mentioned with the sleep, if you recognize that that's an issue, then start working on it. Put that at the top of your priority list. And all this has to do with being a student of yourself. And you can literally just go through the issues that you recognize and just work on them and take the next one step to help that issue. Um, Diet is another huge one. If, be honest about your diet. If you're if you're eating nothing but crap, guess what? It's no wonder you're going to feel bad, and not just physically, mentally. Your gut microbiome is actually responsible for helping to regulate the dopamine in your brain, and the dopamine being one of your feel good hormones. So if you're eating crap, your dopamine's dysregulated, guaranteed. And so you're not going to feel as good as you want to. So you have to just take those issues, look at them one at a time, and just say, okay, what's one thing I can do in this area to make it better?
I think you touched upon the very important aspect, which is about sleep and the diet. Uh, I read an article somewhere which actually speaks about increased irritability and many a times withdrawing from friends or feeling disconnected from everyone around you. So how can someone even try to tackle this as a basic issue that they have?
Yeah, so you don't have to have a diagnosed mental illness to be just stressed. We all experience stress, and there's some things in life that are what we would consider normal stress. If you have a car and you get a flat tire, that's going to be stressful. but your body, should, once that event is over, your body should come back down to normal, to homeostasis. When it comes to being irritable and having difficulty with your friendships, one thing you can do is just pick the best friend you've got. If it's just that one person, and say, look, I want to have an honest conversation with you, and don't be afraid to hurt my feelings. What if we weren't emotionally involved, what could you tell me about myself? What do you see that I don't see? And be willing to listen. Don't take it as, a criticism. Take it as, okay, they're helping me to see what I need to do to fix a problem, what I need to do to be healthier, what I need to do to be happier. Because at the end of the day, even if you're being mean and irritable and pushing people away, you're hurting yourself. And nobody wants to live a miserable life. We all
Yeah.
want to enjoy the things that we do. And if you get trapped in these patterns, then you'll start losing the joy that you have for things that you used to like, sports, TV, reading, just sitting out in the park, things like that. Talking with friends, having coffee, any of those things, you start losing the joy for that because there's something inside. You're stuck somewhere inside. So grab that person, if it's just one person, grab them and say, hey, be brutally honest with me. What can I do? And if you're kind of afraid to do it face to face, maybe your emotions maybe just seem too much, do it writing. Say, hey, can I send you, instead of like a 50-page text, can I send you an email? And you just list these things out. Just lay it out. I want to know. Another key is going out in nature. And people, when we say this, people just think, oh, sure, of course, you
I
tell
was
us.
about to ask on the same line that, many a times people say, uh, walk in the woods. So how exactly does it affect someone's mind or thought process when they are actually stressed and they walk into woods or greenery? What's the relation?
So there's actually a lot, and I'll try not to chase too many rabbits here, but for one, just the physical movement of your body. So
Mhm.
there's a concept called somatic healing, and somatic has to do with the movement of the body. And it kind of goes back to a lot of studies with PTSD when we started learning, many decades ago, that trauma wasn't just an issue in the mind. So it wasn't just that there was a bad memory, it's actually absorbed and stored in your body. Your nervous system, your neurotransmitters, your digestive system, all of things store once you have uh, a release of bad chemicals, so to speak. Your body keeps that. And so just having physical movement is what helps re-regulate the nervous system. So that's one, just the fact of the physical movement. Two, if you're outside walking, you're getting more oxygen, and I don't know if this is a word, but purer, more pure. I don't know which is correct, but the oxygen that you're getting is more pure if you're around greenery. I mean, this is just basic, you know, uh, physical science here. Basic science, what we all learned in school, is plants breathe, take in carbon dioxide and release oxygen. We take in oxygen, release carbon dioxide. Oh, so those two things go together. Imagine that. So there's a benefit. You're getting better oxygen being out there. You're also getting sun. Guess what your body needs to help regulate dopamine and serotonin? It needs vitamin D from the sun. And most of us are stuck inside in an office. Um, for the majority of the day. There are a few people that work outside, but for the most of us, we're working inside. So just getting out in the sunlight. And it's also been shown, there's several studies now that are showing that just the sunlight coming into your eyes, that your
Hmm.
eyes, the back of your eyes, actually help produce certain hormones and um, not vitamins, but I can't think of the word. It's the precursor to vitamins, but it's a type of nutrient. But your eye actually helps produce these, and it only comes from red sunlight, the red um, infrared light. Excuse me. So there's many things. And another thing about when you're walking is it you're even if you're thinking, even if your thoughts are racing and your mind's still going, it just being out there in nature helps regulate your nervous system, which will
Hmm.
also help slow that down in your mind, that speed racing type thing going on. So yeah, there's so many benefits, and we're not even touching on the energy field from the earth itself and from the trees. That's that's a whole nother area of science that there's so much research to show how beneficial it is just to be outside and be in nature.
Absolutely. I think you summed up in a very creative way as to what are the benefits of just stepping out when you're really stressed. And above all, it's all about, paying attention early can really save us from reaching that breaking point later. Um, Now, many people struggle with this feeling of, guilt and shame when they are not okay. How can someone begin to give themselves, I would say, genuine permission to feel not okay without carrying that heavy feelings of guilt? Like, what's the mindset shift that is needed?
That's a good question. And this is one that therapists use all the time. So if you've been to therapy, you've heard this. If you haven't, you probably still have heard this, but that is learning to parent the inner child. And there's a couple of different ways to look at this. The first is, and this goes back to psychological theory, that if you did experience childhood trauma, your part of your subconscious kind of gets stuck. And so there's part of your mind that is still waiting for the love it didn't get when it should have. So becoming a parent of your inner child is learning to love yourself and learning to say, hey, Jamie, I see you when you were 8 or 9 years old, and I'm here for you now, and I love you, and I'm proud of you. And to keep, you have to build a practice of it. It's like anything else, you have to keep trying until it becomes a habit, and to adopt that sincere belief and feeling within yourself. Another way is to just look at it practically. So let's say you're having this guilt and shame that you mentioned, and you're trying to figure out, okay, how can I get a handle on this? Okay, let's just separate you from that guilt and shame. Here, over here on one side is the you with the guilt and shame, and on the other side is you, kind of like a parent, kind of like a teacher. Um, so you're basically just going to uh, coach or parent that other you and say, um, why do you have this guilt and shame? Where is that coming from? Why do you feel that? And you start asking questions. And then you can start getting to the point to where you can say, okay, you, this guilt and shame doesn't belong here, because if, if I were a, if I were teaching or parenting a 4 or 5 year old child, would I tell them, oh, you should be ashamed, you should be guilty? No, I would tell them, oh, it's okay. you're fine. You've had these feelings, and that's fine. And let's move forward. Let's learn what we want to do to feel better. So there's sort of the personal, very deep personal aspect to it, and then sort of the um, separation to where you can kind of coach yourself and ask the questions that you need to answer to get to the bottom of that.
Yeah. I think what I understand is that it's about being a bit more of compassionate towards yourself, being kind to yourself, introspecting, as you called out that you got to have that dialogue with, putting aside yourself and asking, is it the guilt? What's the guilt that you have? So that's really powerful. And I hope our listeners are able to differentiate and take this forward. Let's be honest, life today is so busy and, of course, demanding. And for many people, it can feel like impossible to slow down. And I can definitely count myself in that category, or just take time for themselves. Now, are there any small, doable, practical steps or other habits that our listeners can start incorporating in their daily routine so that there is an ease in the stressful situations that they have?
Yes, another great question. And I was just reading some studies on this that talked about how we kind of have this mindset that to do more is better. But if you look at the results of that, that's not true. It's actually the opposite. To do more is harmful. There has to be a balance. And, we look at ancient Eastern philosophy. We look at Buddhism and Confucianism and a lot of these um, spiritual practices, and what did they teach? They all taught balance. And this is something that kind of, if we go back before the Industrial Revolution, kind of was just in place naturally for the most part, because there wasn't this schedule, there wasn't this demand. People's schedule revolved around nature. When the sun comes up, you get up and you start your day. And when it gets too hot, you take a break. When it starts getting dark, that's when you relax. And so it was just kind of built in. And we don't have that now. And we're pushed to do so much and try to accomplish so much and be so much more, so much better. One of the ways that used to help me when I used to work for a domestic violence agency. And part of my job was public outreach. So I would go out and do presentations, teach classes, things like that. But other times I would just be in the office. And we had regular office hours, 8 to 5, 8 to 5:30, whatever. And I would notice sometimes that when I was in the office that I would sit there for 4 hours straight trying to get the next thing done. And all of a sudden I was like, I haven't even moved. I haven't gotten up. I haven't gone to the bathroom. I haven't gotten anything to drink. I've been sitting here. And this would be after a few days. So it wasn't just the first day. And it was like, wait, I've done this all week since I've been in the office. And I had to write a schedule for myself. And I had to schedule in breaks because I needed to do something healthier. It wasn't that I needed to do less work or accomplish less, so to speak. It was just if I kept up the pace that I had and the routine I had, I was going to be physically sick. I was going to be fatigued. I was going to hit burnout a lot quicker. And so I made my schedule. And so the first 30 minutes of my day, I would spend planning, which included reading emails, marking any that were priority, the ones that weren't, putting them down on the list, and then looking at my calendar and seeing what I wanted to accomplish for that day. And the next would be an hour of working on those priority items. And then right after that hour would be a break. Even if it was just 15 minutes, get up, walk around the office, say hey to somebody, go outside, walk around the parking lot, whatever, go go behind the building and hug a tree, something for 15 minutes. And I would put that on my calendar and I would make it, every hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. That was part of my schedule. Now, I didn't hit it every single day, but it got to be a habit. It got to be a routine so that I, after a while, I noticed I was just kind of doing it naturally. I would work for a while all in and write this and write that, and then be like, I need to get up and go get some water. I need to walk around for just a couple of minutes. And people will be amazed at the benefit of that. And again, it's even if it's just a few minutes to get a mental and a physical break. That's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is learn to say no. We talk about this is a good catchphrase, boundaries. And sometimes it's used in ways it shouldn't be. Boundaries should not be a defense mechanism when someone does something you don't like. You know, it shouldn't be like, oh, well, now all of a sudden I'm going to have this boundary. A boundary is something you set for yourself that you use as kind of like a fence. Like, let's say you're walking down a road out in the country and you go by a farm, there's a fence there. And that fence is to keep the horses or cows in, keep them from coming on this side of the fence, and probably to keep you out too. But, you know, you could probably climb the fence, but that's a different story. But learning to say no. So if you're having a busy week and someone calls you and or messages you and says, "Hey, um, you want to go out to this club Friday night? Blah blah blah. It's great. It's new. It's whatever." If you're already tired, guess what the answer should be? No. It should be
Politely saying no.
no. Say, I already have plans for that night. Now I'm not going to tell you that my plans are sitting with my cat watching TV. But the point being, if you're already doing enough to where you're tired already, it should be no. You can't do everything. Everything you do, it's going to be cumulative if you keep doing that. In other words, you're wearing down your mind and your body day, week, month, year after year. So by the time that you're 20 years from now, you're going to look and feel 30 or 40 years older. And where if you learn to slow down, you're going to look and feel younger. I mean, this was all, you know, what's it called? The blue zones.
Mm-hmm.
They look at blue zones, which is typically like in Japan and Greece, areas in the world where people live longer and not just have a longer lifespan age wise, but they're healthier in those latter years. So they're still very cognizant and pretty active in their 90s, you know, and a lot of it has to do with this. That's one of the components is just not filling every day, all day, trying to do something. It's just kind of taking the time to relax. Relaxing shouldn't be just a break when you need it. It should be a normal practice of your health, physical and mental health.
I think you have shed light on quite a few things. Definitely talking about the conscious efforts that you made to make sure that you take breaks in between, and then unconsciously it became very natural to you. So this is something I'm going to try, because many a times even I get into a situation where I walk into office, I have meeting schedules, and I don't even realize that it's already 2 hours that I'm just stuck at my desk. uh, so yeah, this is something that I have learned today, so thanks for sharing that. Now here comes the favorite part of today's episode. I think we
Okay.
already spoke about it, is about social media. So I definitely feel that social media is such a huge part of daily life for so many of us, and it can sometimes make the pressure to always be okay, always show up stronger. So from your perspective, how does social media contribute to this pressure, and what can we do to weigh it down?
I'm going to answer the second part first,
Hmm.
and everybody's going to hate me for it, including myself. I don't even like this advice, but it's a fact. And that's put your phone down. Put it down, walk away from it, and just don't spend hours scrolling. I love social media. I love TikTok. I love, watching YouTube and getting on Instagram and sharing funny videos with my friends and family. And it's kind of become a form of communication for us. You know, like if you and I were friends on Instagram, we would be sending each other just funny video. Aha, did you see that? And but the only answer is just to limit that time. There was a study recently done in, I forget if it was Australia or New Zealand. I think it was Australia. And it studied the moods of um, early to mid teenagers.
Hmm.
And what they did was the study was all about screen time. So it took them from, I think maybe it was like ages 10 up to 16, somewhere in that range. And they basically took this group and split them in half and said, okay, this half, we're going to kind of persuade or let them have as much screen time as they want. And we want to measure it at, 3 to 4 hours or more a day. In this other group, this other half, we're going to limit it to less than 2 hours a day. And within not 3 months, not 2 months, 1 month, 30 days, there was a noticeable difference between their mood.
Hmm.
The group with more screen time had worse sleep habits. They were more irritable. They were more, expressed more low level depression, a bleaker outlook on their personal life. So the kids that had less than 2 hours felt better about themselves, had better sleep habits, uh, all those things. So it's just a fact. It has a mental and physical effect on us. Um, and it's hard because, like you said, this is our daily life. I I quit watching TV like, I don't know, 15 years ago or something. I don't know. And the news I see is on social media. A trick I used, and that I do this now, is especially with news. If I'm on social media and I see something, I kind of take note of the headline, so to
Hmm.
speak, and I keep scrolling. I don't allow myself to sit and watch a lot of reels or videos about news. The only time I do is if I see something that I feel that is vitally important to me and my world, my immediate world. So, for instance, I may be scrolling, I see a headline about something that happened in the UK, and
Hmm.
I keep going. It kind of helps me to feel that I'm aware of current events, but not become engrossed in them, not become weighed down by them. And so now, if something is near to me where I live, I may dive in a little bit deeper and read the article or listen to the report or whatever. But I try to pass as much as possible. And I can tell you that act since I stopped passively consuming news years and years ago, it reduced my stress uh, by truckloads, and it was almost immediate. Because I used to be one of those. I would get up before work and I would turn the news on the television while I was getting ready for work, and it's all bad news. If there's a news program, they usually only spend the last 2 minutes telling you some good story. It affects you psychologically, it affects your mood. Um, so that's a big part of social media is just getting engrossed in constant bad news. Um, and all the social media works on algorithms. So it goes by if you're on TikTok and you're scrolling and you pause and watch a particular video for the full length, it tells that algorithm that's what you want, and it's going to give you more of that. So every time you watch a reel or a story about something horrific or
Hmm.
something negative, you're going to see more of that. So it's almost like you take a little sip of poison, and then all of a sudden it's your personal chef says, "Okay, well that's what you want. We're going to give you more of that." So you start getting more poison, and it absolutely 100% has a negative effect on your mental health and your physical health and your social health. So become very protective. It Everything we consume has a little bit of poison in it.
I can so relate to what you said about, turning on the television and getting ready to work with news in the background. I had this similar experience a couple of years ago where I had this habit of, let's see what's happening around the world. And I would just turn on the TV and start getting ready. And unconsciously, uh, the content that's been shown on the television, it does have effect on you, may not be at that point of time, but while I'm driving to work, I keep thinking about what exactly did that reporter say about that incident that happened. It did give me panic attacks in the past, so I made a conscious effort that first thing when I wake up, I'm not going to look at my mobile, I'm not going to watch TV. Rather, I replaced this news with some soothing music in the morning, so that when I'm just trying to get normal, it really helps me to slow down. So yeah, definitely I can say that, like you broke that down, it definitely has impact on us, the content that shows. And as you called out, you got to be really protective about yourself, what you consume on social media. uh,
There's a quick little trick,
mhm.
and this is used a lot in addiction recovery, and it's just the delay method. So let's say you said, "Okay, I get it. Being on my phone, scrolling for 2 or 3 hours is bad for me. I got it, but I recognize it's a habit. I do it a lot, you know." Or every time I go to do this, I check my phone. Every time I go to do that, I check my phone. And you say, "Okay, I get it. I want to reduce this because I want to be even just a little bit healthier, even if it's just 1%. Use the delay method. Say you have a habit and you're like, "Okay, I'm going to I'm going to sit down and take a break now so I can scroll on social media." All right. I can do that only after I do something else healthy. Like, okay, I can jump on TikTok, I can jump on Instagram after I clean my room, after I take a walk for 30 minutes, after I listen to 30 minutes of just peaceful music. something, relaxing. Um, so pick something, some kind of activity that's going to be beneficial in some way, physically, mentally, and start using the delay method. So it's kind of tricking your brain, and you're not, because your brain, once you say you can't do that, your brain automatically starts trying to figure out why. Oh, how can we do this then? You're telling me no, so I want to try to figure out a way to do it. Or it says, yeah, but this is my comfort zone. This is my safety zone. So you kind of have to trick it a little bit. So you're not telling it no, you're just saying, okay, we can do it, but it's going to be later. That can help at least reduce the time that you spend on it.
So I think your delay theory is definitely going to help a lot of our listeners. Uh, I know you spoke about being aware uh, about the pattern that you have, but if I could, if you could speak directly to anyone who is carrying the heavy weight of this pressure to to always look okay, what's that one most important or rather powerful message you would want to share with them?
I would say that you are more resilient than you think because, for one, if you're watching, listening to us now, you've already made it through 100% of the things life has thrown at you, or you wouldn't be here. So you can do this. You may have to do it crawling on the ground until you can get up, and you may have to walk before you can run, and you may have to run before you can fly. But other people have done it, and you can do it. And again, if you're here now, you've already beat 100%. You beat everything life has thrown at you so far. So you can do it, and you're actually already doing it. So just take that next step.
That was so powerful and empowering, I would say. I'm pretty sure our listeners listening and watching definitely they could relate to the message that you have said. Thanks for that. Lastly, Jamie, for listeners who want to continue this journey beyond today's conversation, could you recommend maybe some resources or communities that might offer them some ongoing support, whether it could be books, it could be any apps or websites, or maybe even the local groups? What do you suggest?
Yeah, just jump online and do some research. Try to find local groups that are based on activities that you enjoy. It doesn't have to be an official sports team. It can just be local groups that meet up to go walking. It can be groups that meet up to play chess or checkers, or book groups, people where they, pick a book and you all read the same book and then get together in a couple of weeks and discuss it. Um, do that. It will help you, even if you're scared of it, or even if you're an introvert. I'm an introvert. I don't like going into groups of people most of the time, but there are times I have to make myself do it because I know it's good for me. Even if it feels weird or I don't like it, I'm going to do it. I'm a huge comic book and sci-fi nerd. So when in my local area, when there's a comic book convention, I'll go. I'll go show up and just hang out. And even if I don't have hour-long conversations with people, even if I don't connect with people immediately, uh, I I feel better because I'm doing something I enjoy, and there's other people there, and I can see them smiling and enjoying it too, and that helps build social skills. And it doesn't mean that your whole life has to change. It's just one way. Again, all of these things that we're talking about today, I like to think of it like a puzzle. They're all pieces of the puzzle. Not one of them is the whole puzzle, but they're all pieces. Going to your doctor and If you're dealing with mental health symptoms that are severe, going to your doctor and get on the right medication, that's a piece of the puzzle. That's not going to fix all the other things. That's not going to fix your relationships, but that's a piece of the puzzle you need to be stable so that you can work on other things. Going to therapy, that's not going to fix everything else, but it might be a piece of the puzzle that you need for now. It might be a piece of the puzzle that's part of, you know, ongoing of long-term healing. And that's fine. We all need different things at different times too. So, yeah, just spend some time online and looking up, just find things that are close to you. And like I said earlier, just be a student of yourself, recognize the specific areas that you feel you need help with, and then find those and find that one next step, that one thing that you can do to make a little bit of progress. Even if it's, even if you have to get a friend and go with you to do it, just do it. You long term, you will feel better about yourself. You will have more in your life to be proud of. And you never know, you might be like me one day sitting back saying, you know what? I went through years and years of living in darkness and depression. And now I've done healing for a while. Now I'm at a point to where I can help other people too.
Absolutely. I think you gave very, doable kind of options for our listeners. And what I believe is that you got to show up for yourself. You got to come out of your, comfort zone for you to explore the world. And nowadays, everyone has access to social media. Any resource they would want to know, it's easily accessible, unlike the olden times. Okay. So thanks for sharing that. And with that, we are at the end of this episode. Jamie, thank you so much for being here and sharing your expertise on this much needed conversation. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on my show. I learned a lot, especially about being student of your life, showing up for yourself, having that awareness about yourself, what exactly you want in life, if there are any patterns, how do you deal with it, and above all, one thing at a time. That's what really stood out for me. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Ruby. Enjoyed it.
And to our listeners, I hope this conversation has offered some comfort, clarity, and practical steps to help you navigate these pressures in your life. And if this episode resonated with you, please do share it with someone you love the most. Definitely, they may want to hear it. And until next time, take care of yourself and everyone around you. Remember, as Jamie said, it's absolutely fine to feel not okay and then work towards yourself. Thanks, Jamie.